All right, we have a pretty big bucket of stuff to get through today, so I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order, now. Do we have someone taking roll for us today?
That would be me.
Okay, thank
Multitasker
you.
today. You're so welcome.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Mr. Egan.
Here.
Ms. Lasky. Mr. Dantz.
Here.
Mr. Gentili.
Here.
Ms. Kaminsky. Here. Ms. Goodman. Mr. Becker.
Okay, the agenda, we have two items to add to the agenda. One, we're going to put Andrew Bonnie right here in the public comment section, the report from Cape Air, and Joe Robbins, add that down to new business. That's the hangar that we were talking about last time. So if we can add those two things to the agenda, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And that takes us right to Andrew.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me and the team beam into your meeting. I'm joined by Matt Reinhardt, who is our Managing Director of Airport Services, based in St. Louis and oversees the Manistee and Chicago operations. Stacy Schuckhart, who is also based in St. Louis and is pinch hitting for us as the marketing support specialist for Cape Air. We'll talk a little bit about some of the changes in the Midwest structure in just a moment. And Mary Stanley is also joining us. She's at the office here with me in Hyannis. Mary's relatively new to the marketing team. And with your permission, just going to have her beam in to this meeting with us just to see what this is all about. So I'd like to start out by wishing you all a very happy summer. And it really has been a pretty good summer here at Cape Air. There have been some significant changes to our Midwest operation this summer. On July 31st, Cape Air closed our St. Louis operation after 14 years of essential air service in and out of St. Louis. That was originally feeding your operation in Manistee with aircraft and crew. And as we've discussed in the past, that worked sometimes and it didn't work other times from a reliability standpoint. So August 1st, 2023 was really a new day operationally for Cape Air at Manistee. And I am very pleased to report out to you that month to date in August, we are operating at 97.4% company controllable completion. While it's not perfect, that is within the reasonable standards that I think that we can all expect. And it is literally what I sent to you in December of 2022, 8 months ago, as the goal we were looking to hit was 97%. At the same time, I can report to you that our crew base is now full at Manistee. And while we do have one planned attrition, we already have the backfill pilot appointed to come up to Chicago to backfill for that operation through the summer. In addition, the fleet is now entirely TECNAM. We have no more Cessna 402s in our Midwest region. And incidentally, we're actually just one aircraft away from having our entire Montana region completely operated by TECNAMs. That airplane's literally scheduled to fly out of Montana to Hyannis, the headquarters area, at the beginning of this week. So we are finally able to have our entire Midwest operation and our Montana operation crewed and maintained in TECNAM travelers. That means that there won't be any 402s west of really Hyannis. So we're absolutely dedicated to making this transition now. And that's really the first time we've been able to do it. So the fleet is maturing, maintenance training's maturing, pilot training is maturing, staffing's in a much better position, and we've now got Cape Air maintenance right at your airport in Manistee. So lots of good things are happening. In terms of the aircraft sparing commitment that we've made to Manistee, every day it takes 2 line aircraft to run the flight schedule at Manistee. And we now have 4 TECNAM travelers in Manistee flying that line. So we've got 100% sparing for the aircraft that we need in Manistee. For July, we flew 1,459 revenue passengers between Manistee and Chicago. That's a preliminary number. We still have to wash the tickets through the T100 program, but that'll be within 1%. And that's up fairly significantly from last year on a more reliable operation. Looking forward, and I talked with Barry about this a little bit earlier, we are seeing a little bit of weakness in domestic bookings across the industry. During some of the earnings calls of our major airline counterparts this summer, the major airlines were talking about terrific strength in the transatlantic business. The Pacific or Trans-Pacific is recovering a little bit as the COVID restrictions in Asia are reducing and Asia's getting back on its feet as a tourist destination. But domestic, we're starting to see a little bit of weakness, and one wonders if we're not seeing that a little bit in Manistee. Cape Air's New England markets are actually quite strong this summer, despite a significant amount of competitor incursion, mainline jets, or mainline branded jets, I should say, flying some of our legacy markets. But nonetheless, we're seeing pretty good demand in our New England region. But advanced bookings for Manistee are now down 22%. And with input from Barry earlier today, we will be making some fare changes to ensure that the Manistee fares are competitive with Traverse City and Grand Rapids, as well as Muskegon. Traverse City, as I think you're acutely aware, used to be considered a very high fare airport. It's just not right now. There's a huge amount of capacity going in there. There's actually nonstop service to Boston, our hub here this summer. Pretty amazing how the Traverse City Airport has developed over time. And we need to adjust accordingly. So you will see us be more aggressive with fare to build load factor and ridership through your airport. So for this month, for the month of August, we are running a little bit ahead of where we were last year on a good operation last year in August. Give me one sec. I'll give you the latest and greatest. We are on pace to carry 1,615 passengers for this month, which is pretty good numbers. We could be a little bit fuller, but we'll take these numbers. We are starting to see a pretty significant directional imbalance. We had a 20 passenger directional imbalance yesterday, and that just happens with the end of the season. People starting to head back to work and school and whatnot. So, with that, Matt, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thanks, Andrew, and hi, everyone. Just wanted to add that our operation at Chicago O'Hare, we have adapted well to our new gate at G15, and all indications are this has been a positive change overall for our connecting customers. That's really all I had, Andrew.
Thank you, Matt. Stacy, can you just give us a brief update on where we are with marketing, please?
Yeah, so Barry, we need to reconnect on marketing for Manistee, and sorry, I was a blip on the radar. I was here and then I was gone, and now I'm back. So I'm really thrilled to be back and be working with you again. I always have enjoyed working with you and Brandon. So I'm really excited to circle back with you guys and get our meeting back on track for marketing up in Manistee.
Yeah, particularly as the autumn load factors are historically lower, will be important to market. There's frankly not much point marketing in July and August because we're already pretty full. So I think that money will be well spent through the fall. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions, or if anyone else has any comments, engage with those. Thank you.
Well, I'll make a comment. Congratulations on 97+% reliability. That's a number that will, and those things take time, because that's probably one of the reasons why your airfare booking is down, is the previous times when we weren't so reliable here. That is going to take time to catch up. But anyway, I think in that, the bookings will follow the reliability here.
I couldn't agree more. And I've shared this, I think, with this exact group before. There have been other times where we've struggled operationally in a particular city, and it just simply takes time. You can get the traffic back. You got to earn it back though, and you earn it with reliability. So I think you're exactly spot on.
Marketing, as far as that goes, if you need some assist with the chamber or the, Manistee County Visitors Authority, both good places to, get some feedback.
Right, yeah, I have all the connections in Manistee. It's just, we just need to get our weekly meeting back on track, our bi-weekly meeting back on track, with Brandon and Barry. So once we get that scheduled again, then we're moving forward in Manistee. So, but as Andrew indicated, you know, and Barry's aware of this as well, when we have a full load factor during the summer, during the high peak months, peak travel months, we don't have any seats to sell when our seats are all sold out. So the shoulder season and going into fall is when we really need to kind of turn up the marketing and dial it in. So, but thank you.
As part of that plan, as Jeff and Andrew just spoke about, is there a plan in the fall to kind of do an email campaign or social media campaign touting your reliability numbers now?
Sure. So I think we need to put together a comprehensive marketing plan that's, you know, not just for the fall, but really, you know, right through the winter. Stacy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think we probably need to visit on that, and Barry, work with you for your input, and get the chamber's input and the board's input, and really start to, you know, kick that off again.
And we've had quite a few successful email campaigns that we've worked with Fly Manistee. And it seems that their email campaigns, when we partner with them and we kind of go between the airport, Fly Manistee, and Cape Air, and all three of us tag team together, is when we really have the most success on our email campaigns, and reach out with social media at the same time. So we did that earlier this year. We've done it for the solstice sale in December, and have had really positive results for that. So that's something that we can absolutely get on track for this fall.
I'll add a little bit in there, is that we on the airport side maintain an email distribution list that now goes back basically about 10 years of gathering input, so well before Cape Air started. And we periodically, probably about every 6 months, get a data dump from Cape Air of their new passengers that have flown in that window, and then add it into our distribution list. And then when we are in season marketing, and as Andrew indicated, we've been kind of quiet through the summer as typical, we plan generally to do an email about once a month to that list. It's kind of a low volume. We're trying not to overwhelm people so they unsubscribe, but, you know, periodically remind them that we're here. And we're always looking for content, and that's a good suggestion of content to add to our next email blast.
Of this board, we had to update some hotel systems, and the new system didn't work the way it was supposed to. So it's been 6 months now of pure hell. The vendor has finally turned a corner, so now we're writing a letter to all of our top players apologizing for the substandard of our service, and letting them know this is what's changed, this is what we're doing, give us another shot.
Anyone else have anything? I can say I've really enjoyed getting to know some of the pilots and the crew you have on the ground here. It's just a terrific bunch of people to talk with and get to know.
Well, that's great to hear. We're very proud of the team. And one of the benefits of us being a smaller Midwest operation now is we really can pull together as a team with a very focused operation, and really align on providing great results for you guys. People want to be on a winning team, right? So it's great when everyone can pull together, there's team spirit, everyone's got everybody else's back, and we're all working on the same goal. That's much easier when you're seeing the same people day in, day out, and you don't have people rotating through from other bases. So we're really poised for great progress on that right now.
I'll just add to that a little more detail. I mean, you have a crew member who's taken it upon himself to probably once every couple weeks now, host a barbecue here at the airport for tenants and employees and staff, and
Yeah.
board members have joined.
Yeah, they let the two of us show
It's
up.
an amazing thing that what one person can do to just, build community. It's really kudos to your team on that.
I just finished my biennial with this same person.
Great.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Okay, well, thank you all, for that update, and we can move on to the next item on the agenda.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you letting us beam in.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The technology up, so that way Gordon doesn't have to sit on the.
Oh, sure. Technology,
Number 7.
yes. Mhm.
Move that to
Number,
5.
this is number 5 now. All right, so what do we have going on with that? That's,
Gordon?
Gordon, I think we're shifting things around, so you can go next.
All right. Well, thank you, Barry. Good afternoon, everyone. So Susan and I have been working together, doing battle with AT&T over the telephone service out there, and they keep trying to sneak major rate increases by us, but we're on them. What I would like to do would be to move the airport off of AT&T altogether, so that we can just be done with this nonsense of surprise bills every year when they claim to have forgotten to give us our contracted discounts. I've just wanted to kind of gather some information from the group right now as to what you're using telephone lines for out there, and who the current internet provider is. And then I can get some options together for you and bring it to the next meeting, and we can find a way, hopefully out of AT&T before we have to renew the contract in October.
So Gordon, I think I probably have all of the answers to your questions.
Okay.
And it might make the most sense for you and I just to schedule a time between now and the next meeting to discuss this, because
Okay.
I've got some ideas, and I can give you a bit of the history as to kind of why this one line is in the condition it is and why it's been necessary, but a lot of those historic reasons don't exist anymore. So it opens up a lot of possibilities that weren't there in the past. And I'd
Okay.
also be interested on your side, what you can do via VoIP to basically incorporate this line into either your system or a different system that we have out here at the airport, as would make the most sense, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just so the board, I mean, when he talks about major increases, it's like tenfold the monthly cost when AT&T forgets what rate they're charging us. So it majorly impacts us from a budget perspective. And it has been, as Gordon mentioned, an annual thing. It just seems to happen every year, and it takes a lot of staff time on the county side to sort it out. So getting this addressed for a long term would be a really good idea.
So I'm guessing the AT&T issue is solved for another several months? No? So there's,
Until October to get it.
okay.
Yeah, so we did get AT&T to restore the normal monthly rate. However, right now an overpayment was made on our behalf, or the county overpaid one bill. So we're fighting with them to recognize that as a credit rather than as simply paying one of their outrageous bills. So they owe us money still. And I'm working with an AT&T representative to get that ironed out.
My only point would be, I guess, is let's make sure this is accomplished. I don't know if you're gonna need board action for that or not, but, okay.
Yes, sir.
Needs to be on track to be done and completed by October 1 then.
Absolutely. All right, thank you everyone for your time, and Barry, I'm at your disposal. Let me know what.
Email me with some times that you want to get together and I'll respond to that.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and that takes us to the minutes of the last meeting. Everyone received those, had a chance to look over them. Any changes? Anyone want to move to accept those as they stand?
Approve the minutes from the last meeting as.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, and finally, that takes us to the treasurer's report, which I could not download.
All right. Anybody have any questions on those? You just have them up on the screen for you. Pretty standard this month, except for the PFAS. It'll be a reimbursable money back to us.
So the PFAS isn't ever gonna, funding will stop, we'll stop doing whatever, there's really no solution to it, is what I gather, correct?
Well, I mean, ultimately a solution would be a cleanup, but that's like an order of magnitude more expensive than the money they've been spending. So the state has been generally annually budgeting dollars to investigate and study. But when we talk at conference about this at length sometimes of, well, what is the long-term strategy? And there is none yet. So that's kind of hanging over the head of airports, but also a lot of other sites that have this contamination. What is the long-term strategy to address it? And at this point, there isn't any. Michigan is ahead of the curve on this because of a couple high-profile sites initially. The state has really been advancing, so we know more in Michigan about exposure and risks on this than pretty much any other state. Federal government is starting to catch up a little bit, and other states are, but this is a long-term, multi-decade issue in my opinion. But we're hoping that certain departments in the state, Eagle, don't suddenly go from, okay, we've now discovered all this, now everybody, you have your responsibility to clean it up. Unfunded mandate that is unattainable by us or many other entities.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're monitoring it more than they are, because there's not that much here, really, I'm sure.
I mean, of all the airports in the state, we probably have the least exposure.
Yeah.
And with this last round of grants, they spent about $500,000 just researching and monitoring. That's amazing given really the quantity of the exposure risk.
Sure.
But that's how the program's
Working.
And the guidance I've received on these is you should accept the money and do this, because if you don't, then
Sure.
you're gonna be, it's gonna be more likely that negative outcomes in the future may occur. Although I'm worried that negative outcomes will occur just because so much is known, given, $500,000 investment that is looking for a problem.
Anything else? We have a motion to accept the The accounts payable,
So moved.
I'll second.
and that's a roll caller.
Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Downs,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, and Mr. Becker.
Yes.
And then we also have, 3 invoices that were paid from Fund 481 that I need you to approve. That is for those grants that you got. Yes, I need a motion to approve those, yep.
Well, I'm just giving people a chance to.
And that last one is convert existing readers.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I didn't want to be dumb, I'm like,
Yeah, I know, I didn't know what that is.
I know, sorry.
So that's the card readers.
Just
on
making
all
sure
the
y'all are
doors.
paying attention
Yeah.
today.
TKS has started that process. This is
Great.
kind of the down payment of that billing.
Motion to approve the Fund 481 invoices for July.
Second it.
Okay, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Downs,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, and Mr. Becker.
Yes.
If you could send me a complete listing of it out of that.
Yep, yep,
So I
yep.
can kind of compare them.
Yep, and that is on here.
Oh, just later.
Yep, it's just later.
Got it.
And then we have the revenue and expenditure report. We also had the trial balance. And then on the third page is that, the grants for everything that's been spent through all of that. The listing for each separate one, and then, I started the P5 grant Excel as part of those two. For all of the financial statements.
What do we have left in that grant?
So if
Just shy of a hundred
Barry
and
goes
thirty-two thousand
through there.
left between all three.
Okay.
go down, one more. There you go, right there.
Yeah.
And that's through, through July, there might be.
Right.
So how much more do we expect to spend out of that, grant?
We
We expect to spend it all. That will come up in committee report. They met
Okay.
last week on that.
You have like a little less than 150,000 altogether left.
Okay.
So,
But we still haven't paid the bill for like the roof painting and all that sort of thing, so
I mean, there are
we're
things in
committed to a
process.
number of things.
The second half of the TKS.
Yeah, right,
Just approved.
right. Anything else?
Anybody have any questions on any of it?
At this point.
All right, we have a motion to accept.
Classifications, they happen after September's,
Yes, yep.
so that'll be an
So,
October discussion.
yeah, so, well, and actually probably not till November or December, because bills come in late. So as, usually around December is when I kind of say, okay, whatever else comes in, we'll have to wait, go into the next fiscal year, because I'll have to come in after the fact. So usually I wait till like the end of December, and so then probably in January I'll come and make those recommendations. Those budget adjustment line items.
Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to accept?
So move.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Downs,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes,
Ms. Kaminsky,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, and Mr. Becker.
Yes.
All right, moving on down now to the committee reports. The executive committee didn't meet, but the capital improvements, capital projects committee did meet. And this is what we did, last week. I'm the only one here from that committee, so I guess I'll be the one talking to this. But these were various things, and Barry, jump in here because you're living closer to it than I am. But, everything from new vinyl flooring in the,
So this is a list of things that were not previously approved that we're now looking at adding to spend remaining funds.
the vinyl flooring, the chairs would be in the, waiting area for the, for passengers, Cape Air hangar heat. You know, that's been a ongoing drama over
And
there.
that's already been approved by the board, but it was approved without tying it to a funding source.
Yeah.
So the idea is here to request the board ultimately to utilize these funds to pay for.
And you may remember last winter, we talked about the hangar door out there having some problem in the wind, and the heavy winds. And, there is a company in Traverse City that can address that for us.
The company we had been using to do door maintenance, earlier this summer, I tried to reach out to them. I got a response back that said the individual who was really running that was on extended medical leave. A couple weeks ago, I got a letter that basically says they're no longer going to be doing that service. So that, we've reached out to a couple different firms, one in Cadillac and one in Traverse City, and we had the Traverse City firm come in and do some repairs on a door, and I've asked them to re-quote that 4-pin automation. I had a quote from that.
I'm gonna skip these next two, down to the LED lights. That's pretty self-explanatory, to go ahead and change everything else over to LED. I think we're at about a quarter right now, about 25% LEDs.
For parking lot and ramp, those,
Yeah.
probably about a quarter.
Yeah.
Of those have been replaced already. We've been, as things fail, replacing them with LEDs, but the idea here is to basically go through and fix everything all at once with LEDs.
And the last thing down here is actually part of our new business item. That's the new hangar that Joe Robbins, from over in Wisconsin wants to build. And, we can talk about that in just a moment. But there was a question as to who was going to pay for the ramp going from the taxiway up to the hangar. And the committee thought that seemed like something that would be our responsibility, more so than the tenant's responsibility. And those are the two quotes. Of all things, the concrete is the 12,000 number, the asphalt is the 22,000 number. So backwards from what you would have thought a few years ago, but.
Just rephrase what you just said a little bit. In general, it is the tenant's responsibility to do that improvement. Joe Robbins has asked the airport if we would consider contributing that to match his $300,000+ investment in the airport. So that's really the consideration before the board, is doing something that's not expected of us. We've not done this in other, although it's been 20 years since we've done a hangar like this. But it seems a reasonable request given the amount of investment that
The green numbers was just a prioritization of these things. We thought that we need to take care of our own hangar first, that Cape Air is renting.
And the 6 attached to Joe Robbins' hangar, that's really not a priority, since it's almost really a separate discussion.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, it will either happen or not happen. The rest are really the priorities that the committee was.
The chairs, that's a recovering of the chairs out here in the in the waiting area, just to clarify that, those are not new chairs. The LED lights, we looked at a lift, and the cost of a lift and the ongoing cost of the lift, just pretty astronomical, but the LED lights eliminate a lot of the need for replacing those lights, so.
In further investigation on procuring a lift to basically be able to do that without having to rent one, turns out that there's annual state inspections on them that we were advised it's not worth it. You're gonna invest more in maintenance.
Hire somebody to be
maintaining
done with it.
Yeah,
than doing it. If we can replace everything with LED, our need for that will drastically diminish, because that's really why we need a lift, is to replace lighting that, fails, and liability of the LEDs are significantly improved. Not perfect, but significant.
so that's the committee's recommendation as we move ahead. I don't know, do we need a board action on any of this right now? Maybe the hanger?
What I would, what the board could take action on is to approve, paying for the hangar heat out of these funds, so the number one there. And that, again, that project's already been approved by the board, still waiting on scheduling of the contractor on that. But if we could have a motion to, basically authorize that out of these funds, that would be, one step forward on that.
What was the cost for the hangar heat?
It was around $9,000. I don't remember the exact quote, but around $9,000.
Apologies, I don't remember, but when you originally put the list together, the list that I guess was used at what you asked the county or the grant for, just to refresh my memory, what projects ended up getting scrapped that now that we're doing these projects?
None.
I don't think any, really.
Well,
So they gave you more money than you originally asked for?
some things have come in under budget. Things, we just talked about the lift, that was, we had 15,000 allocated for that, so we're really saying we're shifting that over.
Was there like a
There
fuel
were-
farm, with a fuel farm or something too?
Fuel, that's still outstanding, we're still trying to get a quote on that, and it's,
That's the thing right here, tank for gasoline, and we didn't even pursue that.
Not high of a priority anymore?
no, I think it still is, but that's still falling under what was originally approved. These are things we're looking at adding to the list to spend the excess funds.
And then I get that this is a grant, but back in 2018, when the second year I was here, we replaced all the parking lot lights at the resort with LED. And a third of that cost was picked up by consumers.
Right.
So are we missing out on possibly getting somebody else to pay for this instead of using this money?
If we're going to pursue this as kind of a project, and I will definitely be investigating those consumers, when you're doing it piecemeal, light here, light there, it
You're gonna do it
doesn't
all
make
at once,
sense.
like you're saying now.
Exactly, yes.
Consumers
there are-
might still pick up a good
Yes,
portion of that.
yes, there are consumers programs to offset some of those costs. So, Mike, you asked what the board could approve, so I mentioned that one. And then the other one is, since we have a bid from Mathewson's on the chairs, even though it's number 4, it's a relatively small amount.
Yeah.
That could be approved, and we could start moving forward with that, because realistically, if anyone's worked with Mathewson's before, it's gonna take a while.
You have backup chairs?
I was just
We're
gonna
certainly
say,
not gonna
it's
send them
gonna-
all at once.
No.
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 Yeah.
We know that story.
Yeah, she's had one of our sofa since January.
Believe me, we've got 3 projects that we've got various stories about.
We
Yeah.
send them like 20 slot chairs. Like,
So like, was it lilac?
I was hoping it was gonna be a week,
I know.
and I think we're at 20 a quarter.
Every time I go in there, it's casino work. I said, well, who's is gonna get done first?
Don't believe me, you can't be doing ours. We still haven't got the first 20 chairs.
Yeah, they're in the basement.
He did get the hotel chairs done quickly, but he actually came out to the property and did those
Yeah.
because they were just restaining of the balcony chairs.
Oh.
They never actually left the property.
Great work, just takes time.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah, he's quite a character.
and if the county uses them, he must drive you nuts, because his billing and his paperwork is atrocious.
Or another
We used to beg him to bill us.
Not anymore. Okay, do I have a motion to approve using, the grant funds to pay the hangar heat cost, even though we don't have that exact cost in front of us?
Not to exceed, so if you want a board approval,
Yeah.
it should be a not to exceed.
Okay, thanks.
So you gave a target of 9,
Yeah.
let's make it 12 so you're covered, come in under budget.
All right,
So I'll make that motion not to exceed 12,000 for installing hangar heat.
Second.
all right. And that's a roll call vote.
And I'm assuming that would go under the T hangar then, refurbishment? or-
No, that'll be something else. The T hangers or something, or another
Well, no.
building.
One of the grants is generally T-hanger related
Mhm.
stuff.
Okay,
So Susan's just kind of looking at which grant that would fall under.
okay.
It's that one. All right. I'm sorry, who initiated that, Mr. Don?
I did, yes.
And who seconded that, Mr. Gentili? Okay. Roll call. Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky? Mr. Dotz?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? And Mr. Becker?
Yes.
For the-
You also know what it would cost to fix that door?
Not yet.
Okay. So we'll just hold off on that then?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Not to exceed 10,000?
12.
12, okay.
But that's an actual quote we got from Matheson up there on those chairs?
Yes, and
Okay.
we had also looked at purchasing new instead of redoing the existing, and the range, so there are 4 chairs that are out there, and, you know, the range of similar in style, you know, cost between $500 a chair and $2,000 a chair. Huge wide range. So we could possibly come in under. I'm just worried that the quality of the chair, I mean, these chairs have held up very well. They're 15 years old, other than the fabric being stained and dirty. They're solid chairs. I feel safer fixing the issues with good quality chairs than running a risk of saving a little money and getting something that's only gonna last 5 years.
So how many chairs,
I would agree.
how many chairs is this for? The 2,700
Four chairs,
for 4?
yes.
How many are we gonna do in total? Just those 4?
That's. We have 4 chairs that have a fabric upholstery, then we've got a couch and, that's more of a faux leather. It's fabric, the oil, arms are fried cleaning, and it's only so much we can do with this.
All right, do we have a motion to spend some money on those?
Motion to expend a not to exceed $3,000 on either procuring new chairs for the lobby or upholstering the existing.
I'll support that,
That's, yeah, I was gonna say, I like that, yeah.
3,000, did you say?
not to exceed.
Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky? Mr. Dotz?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky?
Yes.
Mr. Goodman? And Mr. Becker?
Yes.
All right, and, circle back to the ramp down there, if we can, just because I want to talk about that hangar just a little bit before we do that. But we'll circle back to that in just a moment. But, that's everything that we have hard numbers for, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so moving on, the Budget Committee did come up with a draft budget a few weeks ago. Andrew, thank you. Cindy, thank you for coming in for that. And, I'm not sure that there's anything to do other than the fact that we did send it. It was moderately received.
So, is it Thursday that the board meeting?
Thursday.
Thursday. Somebody from here will have to come and talk to the board. It's, appropriation is $140,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, we come and, you wanna ask for more? Explain to the board why you would ask for more.
So is that up, down, where are we?
140's up 10 from this year, but down 10 from what's in the
Right.
budget.
Yeah.
So you have to take 10 grand out of maintenance, balance it, it'd be 140.
Or 10,000 out of the transfer to your,
That's this Thursday?
Thursday, 9:30. I'm not expecting it to be a terribly long meeting, but it's gonna
Right.
be everybody who's, requesting money
Right.
needs to come before the board.
County board, this is who this is for.
That's for the county board.
I don't know if you want the committee
You don't need the committee either.
to meet.
Just one.
Probably Barry is just fine for it, as I was just.
I'm reluctant to do that because of my conflicts of interest with each. So if you look at the budget and you look at really what's driving need for this, it's contracts that I'm related to. And I feel in an awkward position going before the county personally and saying, we need these money and it's going to benefit me in some way. I'd prefer at least support from someone else on the board. I'm more than happy to be there and participate, but I just, because of the conflict of interest, I'd rather not be driving that conversation.
Well, neither is or isn't, and if it isn't, it shouldn't be an issue, period. I mean, there's no ambiguity here. It's, like I said, to make the allocation, we're making the allocation. And it's gonna happen, and that's gonna carry on as we've done years past,
And I guess the other question I have is, were the rates for salaried staff increases, approved? Yes.
Not as of yet. We've got targets, but that hasn't been, and that does not affect contracts either. It's just gonna be, those are courthouse, non-unionized courthouse and elected officials minus county commissioners.
So the committee had decided that they wanted to follow the county's lead. So as it relates to my contract and which Orchard Beaches, what those rate increases would be the coming year, to follow the county's lead on that. We've got some guesstimates right now, but a little bit of chicken and egg here as to finalizing exactly how we want to do things. So can you tell me what that range is?
The range is, at the moment, the discussion from Tuesday's meeting was 3% raise and a 2%, I'll refer to it as a COLA indexed based upon, help me out here, Susan.
One-time payment.
One-time payment, but it was going to be indexed, wasn't it?
Yes,
So
based
the-
off of your earnings.
Yeah, so a higher
The sliding
waged
scale.
individual did not receive the
Mhm.
same percentage.
Right.
COLA, one-time COLA is the lower,
The sliding percent.
yes. 5, 4, 3,
So, yeah, and we also did a 4, 3, 2, and 1.
yeah.
What we,
Presenting to the board.
what's in the current budget is a 3%.
Yeah, I don't know that I could do that on Thursday. I have to be in Atlanta this weekend. And, I don't think I could, I think you might be flying solo on that.
Yeah,
That's
I won't
fine.
be here on Thursday, that'll be up in Leelanau.
Yeah.
I'll handle it.
Okay, yeah,
I want to
I
publicly
understand.
state my reservation, but
Where is it located, Barry?
Commissioner's room at the
At
courthouse.
the courthouse.
So I have a 10 o'clock Thursday morning is my first meeting, but I'm not, not enough time.
it'll be.
That's my problem. I could be there at 9, but not much after.
We don't tee off till, I think, 9:30, I think, but.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And that takes us, then to your report.
Hard copy of it.
Thanks.
I think this may be the shortest report I've had, so this is gonna be good.
Not done yet.
There's,
You're
we talked
speaking
about
for
marketing
everyone.
already.
Mhm.
It is busy, as it always is this time of year. General aviation traffic is doing well. In fact, it really has picked up, kind of later in the summer, especially kind of after the first week of August. Last week, this week, is looking to be very strong. Anecdotally from our car rental vendor, he said he's out of vehicles basically from the first week of August through the month of August. So it's busy, and that's good.
And he's still, giving us 10 vehicles? Is that the number, or is that?
And I believe so.
If he's running out, does he have any plans for next summer to increase the amount?
That I don't know. It's one of those things, it's expensive to hold a couple vehicles that you're only gonna use a few weeks a year for peak demand, so there's a little bit of, but what was interesting is he mentioned to me that probably a week ago, he was starting to get calls from Traverse City people because they were out of cars up there. In a way, because it's not us. Still the demand from. Seems to be a regional thing, happens occasionally. So under airport incidents and accidents, and this is something I probably could have mentioned last month, kind of escaped my mind at the time, but there was, and I'll say, an alleged tire slashing at the airport. Of an ongoing issue between a tenant and a Cape Air employee who have history of issues between them and restraining orders and things, and tenant alleged that tires on his boat trailer, which he stores in his hangar, had been tampered with. Got the sheriff's department involved, and nothing has really come of this. The vehicle in question left under its own, trailer, so it didn't be under its own power, but taken from here to Manistee Tire to have tires replaced. There are some pictures that people have drawn different conclusions as to what really happened. But as a result of that, the party that was, well, first off, the hangar in question is the former airport hangar that is now been transferred to the tenant, over on the other side, and we don't have any video camera coverage over in that area. So the first question was, a video, and we show people coming in and out of the gate, but can't see what happens beyond that. So we had no video that could help in this. It's what, when the sheriff's department was following up on the investigation, they were asking for, I told them that. The follow-up item and why I'm mentioning it is we then did, late last month, get a Freedom of Information Act request for video of the gate. But fortunately, by the time that request came in, it was past the 3 weeks that the system maintains its video, so there was nothing for me to give. So my response was, we don't have anything to provide you with. So I don't think anything is going to happen from this point in time, but I wanted to mention it to the board so that you've got knowledge that this has occurred.
I'm assuming we have signage out in the public parking area about your basically parking at your own risk. Do we have anything back by the hangars?
We don't have either of those.
Is there any chance that they could come back after the airport under the liability insurance?
I don't think so, because at this point, there's no evidence that's conclusive that says anything happened other than essentially the tires were worn and weathered.
Is there a reason why there was a boat trailer here?
When you have a big hangar and one airplane, that's a common thing that you'll store other things in there with the airplane.
There's nothing or at least that the stuff that they bring on the airport grounds is their responsibility?
I believe there is, yes. But again, we weren't being held, we were just being asked to provide information.
I get that now, but once they find out that they can't get who they're really after, are they gonna come after signs? So it's just like something that happens in a casino. We got no part of it, but once they find out they can't get what they were after out of the person that actually hit them, then they start knocking on our door going, well, yeah, this person ran into us, but it was on your parking lot.
Yeah. I've had conversations with both individuals. I don't believe anything is going to move forward from this. So there's that. Something else that I thought I should mention to the airport is just kind of give an update on summer part-time help. So generally, for the last number of years, I've hired an additional part-time person in the summer. This year, I upped that to 2 people. So it's ending up being about 20 more hours per week. And the primary reason for that is you've been on the board for a while now. You'll know that tree clearing is kind of an issue that percolates up occasionally, and we've really not done much to maintain the area near the fences. The fences were put in early 2000s, so all of that area was cleared at that time when the fences were put in, but especially on the south side of the airport, where the bluff line is, the fence tends to be at the bottom of the bluff, and the airport tends to be at the top, so you've got basically this slope. Can't really get to with our mowers, so it has just over time grown up with brush, and that brush now is getting to the point that you could call it trees. So I've been utilizing this additional time this year to basically start a process of slowly working through clearing brush and trees in those areas, so that over time we can do that. And that's something I am very reluctant to send a single individual out to the chainsaw and be clearing stuff on a slope, you need two people there for safety, so if something happens, there's another individual that can really get help. So that's a lot of what was driving that this year. So I just wanted to mention that trying to start a process over a period of time, it's not something we're gonna do in 1 year, but manage that tree and brush growth better and the resources it takes. And then the last thing is, I had mentioned last month, kind of the results of our airport inspection. I've got a deadline with the FAA at the end of this month, and I owe them a sign maintenance plan. That was one of the things we were dinged on, is that our signage is becoming a little bit sun-faded, and they want a maintenance plan that shows we're making progress to address that. And then pyrotechnic training, more exciting than it sounds. For our wildlife control plan, we have basically little popper guns to scare away wildlife, and the FAA requires every 12-month recurrent training on the operation of those. We missed that this past year, so those are what to do there. Much of this has already been covered in what Andrew reported. So the number of passengers for July, Andrew mentioned that number in his presentation, and why am I screen?
Well, Andrew said 97%.
I was just thinking that.
And I'm looking at 77.
Yeah.
8% canceled.
97%
Of what he
is for
controls.
August.
But he also had put in, and then another caveat in there of their control.
Right.
Yeah.
But there have been 3 cancellations this month, so that is the 97.
I'm assuming that meant if it's weather, that's not, it's
Yeah,
controllable.
that is true.
He's not factoring,
That's correct.
this sheet would probably factor in a weather cancellation.
But his comment was for August, so that's really through the first 19 days of August, is that 97%. July was not quite that good. So it's really as the transition of St. Louis shutting down, us becoming a all Tecnam base, and maintenance being done here, and crewing basically being totally dedicated to Manistee without,
That's where I think
going out.
if all those things, if you went out and told guests that have been here, that have had the experience that Jeff was talking about, and told them, here's what's different now, and get them to return. Because people understood that they don't have to fly in because the last time I flew here, I ended up sitting in the co-pilot seat, and there was duct tape holding the dashboard together. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'll just drive down to Grand Rapids from now on.
We use a lot of tape in the aviation industry.
But generally, passengers don't see it.
I learned about tape when I joined United Airlines. I never knew there was so much tape available of different types.
That was the last time I flew out here.
So July was comparable to last year, and the whole time I've been sitting here, my power supply has not been plugged in, so my battery just died, so I'm gonna have to switch over to, is there an extra?
See the tape they use on the wings.
Then on
Yeah, they just eat it out there.
Good stuff.
On the next page, the airfares, and Andrew touched on this a little bit, so he and I had our monthly call this morning at 10 before the meeting. And I brought up with him, that our advance bookings are down compared to last year, and he was well aware of that. Actually, he brought it up first. But then I brought into the conversation kind of this airfare report, since it's done over the weekend, and specifically showing that, the fare Chicago to, local airports, we're the highest airport from a local fare to Chicago, about $90 more expensive than Traverse City, and then
$140 more expensive than Muskegon and Grand Rapids. Muskegon and Grand Rapids, less of a competitor per se, but Traverse City, historically, that's our bread and butter is very competitive fare to Chicago for this northern Michigan, northwest Michigan market. So currently, we're not being competitive, and I think that's contributing, and I think Andrew, after this morning's meeting, has looked into this a little bit, and he's adjusting fares accordingly. So,
but it's a change out of Muskegon, though. Wasn't Muskegon the highest for the longest time? Now they're the lowest?
well, that's just the fare to Chicago.
I thought even just the fare to Chicago, they were the highest.
They were, I think Southern has adjusted in markets,
They moved
based
quicker than
on,
we did.
on things. If you look at the average, Muskegon is still the highest, across, all, the average across the city. We're second highest, and right now, Traverse City and Grand Rapids actually are pretty much neck and neck. And if you look at the Traverse City numbers, pretty much they're all being driven by low fares out of American, two that are Delta fares, but pretty much everything is American driven. And American is Cape Air's code share partner. So one would think if American were playing fair, they would price both us and Traverse City the same. They're not. They are intentionally trying to drive more passengers out of Traverse City, which is, I can understand that. It's not necessarily the most desirable for us. The range isn't that significant, so once you start including other convenience factors like parking, it kind of levels the playing field. But it doesn't help as we leave peak summer, go into September, October, November, when we still have the same capacity as we have in July and August, but less demand. So filling those seats, it'll be interesting to see how this goes and how Cape Air reacts to that issue. So, any questions on that? On the capital projects, our airport layout plan last month, I had mentioned that the state finally gave back their review. Trina Newhoff has submitted updates per the review comments, and now it's back in the state's hands. And then my last slide is just Cape Air service. Nothing that hasn't already been talked about, so I won't mention anything there. And that is all I have.
All right, any other questions?
Just the one on, several months ago, we talked about the August meeting was the one we were supposed to get a presentation from Trina Newhoff in regard
Correct.
to the 1,000-foot extension. So what's the status of that?
So that, well, I guess, were we gonna mention, I mean, it's Mike's email that got sent out over the weekend. So we're in the middle of our consultant reselection process. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to bring Trina Newhoff in if they're not even going to be our consultant October 1st. So my recommendation would be, that would be a good candidate question for the interviews that Mike is trying to set up for the board of the three responders to the RFQ on that.
Anything new on the township?
No.
Okay.
Other than it's not related to that at all, but I've been working with township on Joe Robbins' hangar.
Right.
So.
All right. Sure. Anything else, LEO coverage?
I can report I haven't made progress. I've realized that I just need to delegate that to other staff to get done. So there is a draft now that got done last week, so that's moving forward.
Okay. And I don't believe there's been any talk of the bylaws. We haven't had a committee meeting for that, I know.
No.
Commercial auto insurance, liability insurance, anything that we're... All right, that brings us to the consultant selection process. Anyone who wants to be a part of that interview, certainly welcome to do so, and that's what I sent that email out about, to bring your calendar with you or bring some way you can check and see if there's a time we can get as many people who want to be involved. We have to do them all in one day. That's the state mandate for that process. We have 3 candidates. We're to allow 1 hour for each candidate, and I think 4 hours is a reasonable amount of time, I think, to pull this off. We have a sample set of questions from the last time this went around, and that was, how many years ago?
I think that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I glanced through them. I mean, you know, they're what they are, but we have to ask the same questions of all 3 firms to be fair, and I agree with that. Totally. So I guess that's where we are right now. We can do that either live or by Zoom with the presentations, but we're giving them all the opportunity to come in here and sit right here live and do their presentation. They're from Battle Creek, Lansing, and the other one, there are 2 addresses on there, Grand Rapids, Holland, whichever letterhead you're reading. But I think the noon time seems to work out reasonably for them to be here, get home in a reasonable hour. And, but, you know, I'm open to any suggestions.
How far out into the future you go?
I'm really, we'd really kind of like to get this done, ASAP.
So we really need this decided by the beginning of the fiscal year, so October 1st. So therefore, either at the next board meeting to approve a selection, or if we have a quorum at a special meeting where we're doing the interviews, we could take action at that time. So sometime in the next 6 weeks.
I'd recommend getting reviewing the contracts and the proposals, and then everybody have a little bit of a chance to think about it a little bit, and then make the recommendation at that board meeting next month, as opposed to
Now, are you,
digesting everything and making a,
Same day.
yeah.
are you, okay, that's in addition to the information you got back last month, then?
So you have all the proposals, those were sent out after the last.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah, I do.
I don't even know if I've got it.
yeah, July something, I just had that up a second, let me see. July 19th, so, for an email from that era.
You're really looking right now for a date or 2 days that we can get as many people as possible together.
Right.
To do the interviews.
There we go. Yeah, and, right now, so 21st, we have 1, 2, about 3 weeks before the next meeting, because this meeting was pretty late. Next week is very difficult for me. Unless maybe late in the week. Then there's the Labor Day week. And then we have a full week after Labor Day, before the next board meeting. So me, just to get the ball rolling, I'm not making any recommendations. For me, it really would be September 5, 6, 7.
5 or 7 are good for me. Well, yeah.
5 and
Or
7. 8, I might could do 8, but I could, that would involve some, shuffling around a little bit. What'd you say, Jeff, 5?
5, 7, and 8.
5, 6, maybe 7 would be okay for me. The 8th I'll be gone.
Okay. So we have the 5 and the 7 that are fairly clean for 3 of us then.
This works, 7th and 8th,
Any idea? Okay.
So let's shoot for 5.
Sounds like the 5th.
The 7th?
Yep. That's gonna be the day after Labor Day. Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, at noon, yes.
okay.
All right.
I will
Sweet
communicate
deal.
that to the, vendors and up with a schedule with them for slots at 12, 1, and 2.
Good deal. And we'll get the word out to the board members who are not here
Remaining members, yeah.
so we can, I'll get something to them this afternoon. That way they can go ahead and pop it on their calendar before something else comes up.
Do you just want to work with me on finalizing the list of questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we could actually do that. We could send out that list of questions, couldn't we, that pre-exists? And then people, if
They wanna
anyone
add
wants to
something.
add or subtract anything to it, that's fine, because, you know, it's a fairly living document.
A lot of them were specific to that time period, so
They were, of
10
course.
years ago, they're not going to be included, but
And Jeff
It
just
can-
brought up something specific to
Yeah.
this time period
it
that we can add.
it can give you an idea of the types of things that have been asked in the past, and if there's anything you want added, we can add it.
All right, that's fantastic. All right, anything else under old business now? All right, that brings us down to new business, and the only thing I have on here is the, Joe Robbins Airport. And, I believe we're pretty much ready to make a presentation, and with an approval today, I think we can move dirt, like, this afternoon, can't we? Theoretically.
We'll see. So this came together over the weekend. The survey, I got the survey completion, which then is the parcel description, from the surveyor on Saturday midday. So then I could incorporate that in. So this agreement is based on the last one we did, with Ted Ahrens, a while ago, updated. It incorporates language that talks about, the airport authority, contributing funds to pave the ramp. Otherwise, the terms are pretty much what our existing land leases of this type, incorporate. It has not gone through a legal review, so any approval I would recommend be contingent on, legal review. But otherwise, I think we're ready to, if the board so desires, to approve and allow, Mr. Robbins to build his hangar.
How long would the legal review take? We've got a history here of
I don't-
non-prompt action.
Right, I don't know, but from my perspective, there are a couple other little outstanding issues. There's an FAA, site approval that needs to be accomplished. I view everything other than this board's action to agree, at least in principle, to the terms, everything else is being procedural. So I am very comfortable with Mr. Robbins beginning work, even if there are a couple procedural things outstanding. So that's my take on it. If we want everything wrapped up 100% before he starts, that FAA approval could take 30 days or more, and he's got a building because of, he was in a queue for manufacture of the building and others dropped out ahead of him, so things have moved up for him. So he's ready to start this week, and he's contracting with Zimmerman Construction, and they've got a slot available to begin work, so he's chomping at the bit to go. While it may not be perfect, having all of the I's dotted and T's crossed, I believe that with this board's approval of the substance of the agreement, we can move forward and wrap up the other items as necessary.
You can pull permits that quickly?
They can have a building permit today.
Wow.
The township's just waiting on this board to
Waiting on a
basically take
text.
action.
It has a stop.
So I'm a bit confused though. So he wants to start today without any other FAA approval and all that. What if there's an issue and he started and there's an issue?
What the FAA, it's called a, I forget the exact term. What they're looking at is the height of things. The location of this is farther away from the runway than other buildings that are of the same height.
It's a formality.
It's a formality,
Okay.
but it's something that has to be done.
And if you're going to do something pending a legal review, then that would, I would think, would muddy up anything happening prior to.
But they reviewed the current a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, so there is the risk that some laws have changed,
Yeah.
but didn't they write the current lease?
Yes, yes.
I share your concerns because I use them now, and I was very hesitant to, based off of the experience here. It's been a totally different experience.
Really?
Very responsive, just different.
Must be good to know Andrew.
No, it's a different, different set of attorneys. But it's just a night and day from what the
Yeah.
experience I've had here. When something pops up and we have a board meeting and we tell them, 48 hours, they'll flip it around.
I'm not sensing any objection to
So,
this project.
This has been done before, the building and a lease? and
Well,
everything?
we affectionately refer to it as the Ted Aaron's hangar, is probably our one instance.
Yeah,
Is there others?
Orchard Beach has a hangar as well.
yeah, so it's pretty.
That
That
predates-
Bill built, or you built?
Bill built.
Yeah.
So that actually is the
Most current?
oldest. Aaron's followed suit about 5 years later, and then now, we did, with our old hangar, basically turn that into a land lease. But the format of that is very different, because it was taking an existing hangar and transferring ownership, so I didn't use that as the basis. I used pretty much identical to this.
No, personally, I like to see things start moving, so.
I'd say it's a worthwhile asset, yeah.
So do I have a motion to
What's the motion, how's the motion read?
To
Yeah.
approve
the lease agreement?
agreement?
Mhm.
pending legal review. Make sure you add that.
I would make the motion to agreement pending the legal review for the Joe Robbins hangar.
The legal review is a new thing to me, so
I don't know much about that, so I don't
that's,
wanna
that's
say yea
the
or
next
nay
thing.
either way right now.
Yeah, we weren't talking about that the other day, so that's the legal review. Do we need to put that in the motion?
It would need to be in the motion.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be, but I would recommend it.
If you approve it without saying that, then you're basically accepting it as is.
Yeah,
And then if there is something that has changed between, I think it was probably 2 years ago, when they did the last agreement?
No, it
No, no, no.
it was
No.
much longer ago.
Long time.
Not the Aaron's agreement, but what, didn't they update the document like in 2019 or 2020? Because
Yeah, there was something.
that whole document was updated.
That document was that, a lease agreement with the, guy from PCA? Yeah.
But I thought everything was standardized that year.
Yeah.
I think what you're referring to is
That-
another document I sent out, which is
that the
the
land
land lease
lease?
policies.
Yep.
That's just an internal policy statement. That's not a legal document.
Yeah. Well, then, if it's been that long, they're definitely gonna find stuff, because laws have changed.
We have to hire someone to do that legal review? Do we have people?
Well, we've got a-
We have
Legal staff?
legal counsel. So, to your point, I'm expecting them to come back with some recommended changes. I'm not expecting them to come back with anything substantive. So, again, I view the action of this board as approving the structure, the grant contribution, and basically all of the major terms. And then we've got to work through the process of getting a document that can be signed. But again, I don't see, there's always some risk of proceeding before everything is wrapped up, but I don't see anything that's going to substantially change anything, this agreement, or that would substantially change the project.
You have $25,000 left in grant funding to cover the ramp.
Well,
You're gonna have to mention a not to exceed amount if you're including the ramp in this as well.
so I would recommend the $12,000.
Yeah, for the concrete.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you're gonna do that, but not knowing when or if this is actually gonna proceed, you don't know if that $12,000 is still gonna be a firm number. You're gonna have a not to exceed.
I wouldn't go as high as 25,000.
Well, I was just thinking in case you ended up going with the asphalt for whatever reason.
right.
So both of those quotes come from Zimmerman Construction. Part of the reason the concrete is, I think, where it's priced at is he's doing the concrete
For the foundation.
foundation anyway. So it's his labor, his timing, his project, much easier to track than hiring in somebody to come in and do asphalt. Especially right now, given asphalt firms are generally very booked.
Mhm.
That's
They
we'll
quoted.
do it, but we don't wanna do it. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. Well, that would be a separate, separate proposal anyway, separate motion to build that ramp.
If it's in the lease.
Or is it in the lease?
It is in the
He said
lease.
it's in the lease.
Because that, I don't have a dollar amount in the lease. So I would definitely include that in the motion. Not to exceed.
Big motion.
Must be a mouthful, nobody's jumping at it.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to process this all.
So we have three things, the lease itself,
Well, you could
pending
do,
legal review,
And the ramp
and
that needs to
well, you
be
could do
built.
approve a
Access
lease
to
not
agreement.
to exceed.
I would keep the ramp separate,
That's what I was
you
thinking,
know.
since it's another thing, but if it's in the
If you're approving
lease.
the lease and it's mentioned in the lease,
Because the last I'd talked to him, he wasn't asking for a ramp. So this is new from the last time, I sat here and talked with Joe a couple of weeks ago, right here in this room,
But
so.
every communication he's had with me.
Has it? Okay. All right.
That doesn't mean he will pull out if the authority doesn't do. But when we discussed it at the committee level, the committee felt it was a reasonable request.
Mm.
Investment. And again, for those that are newer on the board, the way these leases work, and it's spelled out in the text there, but I'll just kind of summarize, is it's a 30-year ground lease, so they're renting square foot of space for them to make improvements. And then at the end of that 30 years, they either need to tear it down and regrade it back to dirt, or it becomes the property of the airport, if the airport accepts it. So if it's not maintained in good condition, we don't want it. But that is how airports grow and acquire new facilities, is private individuals build them, use them for an extended period of time, and then they become the airport property. The one hangar over there was originally PCA's. We've talked about Ted Aarons, who, before his lease expired, contributed it back. Orchard Beach has got another, I think, 10 years on its lease for that hangar.
Is there a rate they pay a yearly for the land, or no?
Yes, it will be the same rate, and that's our policy.
So much per square foot.
Yeah.
Says, so it's the same rate that,
Is it just that much, or is it like that sliding scale
it's
for
that
Orchard
sliding
Beach?
scale.
That's a pain.
Just every 5 years it's a pain to recalculate it.
So you could do it as approve Joe Robbins' lease with ramp cost not to exceed, whatever certain amount you're gonna not to exceed, agreement pending legal review.
Just another quick question, I just wanna make sure, so if we do this ramp, it is going to be covered with the grant?
That is,
We've got the money to do it.
So,
Well, it says we're providing the ramp, but no amount, so that will be up to us to determine, so that.
Right, that's why it's gotta be part of the,
So that could be
lease
anything down the
with
road.
ramp cost not to exceed.
If we want asphalt, cement, or.
Yeah.
but again, given
Right.
his desired timing
To
on
get
this,
going.
Yeah.
I would say
I
the,
would suggest we go
yeah,
with,
the lower expensive option by far.
even
It's not
though-
like a $2,000 difference.
Yeah, right.
You're talking 10 grand.
even though typically one would expect asphalt to be less expensive than concrete, but circumstances lead to
Right.
otherwise.
Make a motion to approve moving forward with the lease with Joe Robbins, pending legal review, and the inclusion of a ramp to said hangar not to exceed $12,000.
Second that.
Now we need to get George on the clock here too.
Okay. Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Dotz,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes?
Ms. Kaminsky, Ms.
Yes.
Goodman, and Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, good deal. Comments?
Yes, I have one, just, it's been a point of contention for us up at the resort, and I noticed it coming in here today. When's the last time you guys painted your curbing? We've had several incidents at the C-store and at the resort where people have tripped over the curbs, so I've been hounding my maintenance guys to make sure they're getting the fire lanes and the curbs painted. Just something to consider, because I noticed all your painting on the red fire lane was all gone.
That is, there was no painting it on the curb when this facility was built. That red was added when Frontier was here, and we used that as the baggage unloading area. So they would take the baggage cart out to the curb, so we couldn't have people parking there because we need people to be able to pick up their baggage there.
There is
We
no
don't
fire
do that
lane.
anymore. I've intentionally let the, painting fade, because that purpose isn't being used. So whether there should be a fire lane or not, is probably the question I need to have. Because right now, we routinely utilize the front curb as rental car pickup. So rental cars are parked there and we direct people, your car is at the front curb. Nice, customer service wise, but if there were to be an issue, fire department. So I'll follow up with Manistee Township Fire Department on that.
Anyone else?
Other than my comment, again, we need to get that to Mr. Saylor
Today.
pronto,
Sure, sure.
and not to have a 4-month lag time on this, or a 4-week, or
Mm-hmm.
4 days is a stretch.
Yeah, yeah.
Shouldn't take that long to
I
read
don't know
it.
if he's a partner or what.
Well, what I always get a
How we
kick
doing?
out of, because I see this happen all the time, well, we have to change a word here, and we have to change a word here, and then we need to go another word here, and then it stretches out, and I've seen this time and time again, and, my patience for that nonsense is starting to go over the top.
Days turn into weeks, months and years.
If there's something of substance is one thing, but some of the nonsense that I see get carried on with the legal process, infuriating.
Yeah.
There, I vented.
Unfortunately, a lot of ways today.
Anyone else? All right.
I agree with that.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you for all the work on the committees. Really appreciate y'all coming out and doing that. And I will see you folks on September 5.